Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, or iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. I am back after, how long? Not that long, but just Friday and Monday I didn't get anything in, so you're getting a triple, I guess? I don't know. Something along those lines, yeah. So, pretty much, tomorrow, I go back to school, so it's going to be hard to get any podcasts in for those days, because I am on limited time. I do think this summer I got a lot of podcasts, and I am proud of that. We're up to 100 and... This will load. I think this is episode 157, so this is episode 157. I've uploaded... since summer started, I've uploaded 22 podcasts from episode 135 to this episode now. So I think pretty good summer. Fortunately, I'm assuming very similar to last year, just around early November probably I'll return. But like I said, whenever I can. This year it was conveniently This year it was conveniently on pretty much on November during fall break, then spring break. Winter break I had COVID, so I was doing a lot more resting than working on podcasts, so. Okay, so a few things I want to talk about. So Pittsburgh beat West Virginia in the backyard brawl opener. Now, I just want to know, why do we go 11 years without one of these games? Like, this is a rivalry built on pure hate. Games with... We haven't really had a real, game based on pure hate in the NFL, kind of college. Football, overall, hasn't really had a big rival where they just hate each other's guts, because even, Packers-Vikings, Packers-Bears, it's not really anything crazy, it's just, they're division rivals, that's what you have now, I mean, we had the whole Aaron Rodgers telling the Bears he owns them, but that's really the only crazy thing we've gotten in the past decade. By the way, Sean Clifford is still in college, and he's 2 years older than Trey Lance. And I just had to address one thing. He ran to the locker room, okay, and James Franklin said it was cramping. Clifford said he had a few minor injuries and tweaks, and it was controllable. I'm not going to speculate. I don't know what happened, but last time the cramping excuse came up, it was Lamar Jackson. Said he didn't pull a Paul Pierce or whatever, I don't know. I don't think anyone wants to admit to that anymore. It's quite embarrassing. But you know what? He got the win anyway. So, it doesn't really matter. I think that's what's distracting everyone from even asking questions about this is, they won at the end of the day. So, by the way, just because I brought Trey Lance's name up, I gotta say, he has thrown 71 passes in the NFL, and in the last 3 years hasn't really played much. And behind him, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who has made two NFC championships and won one. He's beaten Aaron Rodgers twice in the playoffs. And I know Rodgers isn't the best in the playoffs, but it's still impressive to beat a guy like that. Regular season or playoffs. It is tough to outplay Aaron Rodgers. And obviously the ideal situation would have been Jimmy G get traded. But that's not happening. So this is a big risk starting him. He's only 70 passes into his NFL career, and he, like I said, because of COVID, hasn't played a lot in the last 3 years. It's going to be tough for Trey Lance this year. By the way, later in the show, as part of today's podcast, I'm going to go over my new top 10 teams, because I think I gotta adjust from some of the last few ones that I've done. I forget what my top 10 was for that. Sorry, I'm looking for my list. I got it somewhere. Damn. This is really annoying. Alright, if it's not in this note, I'm probably gonna just move on. Yep, I'm done. Actually, watch it be in this one. No? Okay, good God. When did I do this list? It's gotta be here. Has to be. There we go. Alright, so I had 10 Vikings or Packers, 9 Bucks, 8 Chargers, 7 Cardinals, 6 Chiefs, 5 Niners, 4 Broncos, 3 Bengals, 2 Rams, 1 Bills. So a few adjustments are going to happen there. All right. All right. So the USC has ushered the Lincoln Riley era with a dominant win. By the way, they had the ball for 5 minutes less and scored 50 more points. That's impressive. 5 minutes of less possession time, and they scored 50 more points. They won 66-14. Caleb Williams had a 211 quarterback rating. I think this is going to be a great new era for them. I think Lincoln Riley is a fantastic coach for USC to have. I think he's a culture changer, Kind of wish he would come to the NFL. I think he'd do great there, but I also thought Urban Meyer would do great there, so my opinion's not canon, so... But, it's... No, I'm excited for USC. I really am. I think they could surprise a lot of people this year. So, with Garoppolo still staying on the Niners, I gotta go back to this. I'm sorry. It's so... I empathize with Trey Lance because of this. Because, he has to rely on... Because he's not going to be great right out of the gate. He like I said, he has very little experience. So he has to rely on Shanahan, who is probably trying to win the Super Bowl, because this is a Super Bowl roster. You can't just give up the season. So if he's losing early on, he has to rely on Shanahan being really patient if he wants to continue down this, if he wants to continue being the starter, he's got to win early, and that's not an easy thing to do when you just started taking over the starting quarterback role. And I'm still high on them. I still think they're a top 10 team, but this is a tough situation. So, Wilson signed a 5-year contract with the Broncos. I obviously am really high on the Broncos. I think they are a fantastic team. I think they are a lot like the Bucs with Tom Brady. They were missing that one guy. They were average before him, but with him, they could be great. They got great assets. My sleeper is still the Eagles. I don't think the Broncos are really a sleeper because there's other people that say that the Broncos are going to win the division. And people say the Eagles are going to win the division too, but I think they can be a good 11-6 team, 11-win team. But I think like everyone else, though, I'm not very high on them. In playoff-wise, Like, playoff-wise, I don't see them doing much, but I can see them winning a decent amount of games. Alright. So, Mitch Trubisky was named the starter and the captain. And the players are telling the staff... That means the players are telling the staff that Trubisky is the guy. And I'm not at practice. I don't know exactly what's going on. I think Pickett should be the guy, but like I said, I don't know what's going on. I'm not at practice. I think what the players are saying by giving them that advice is Pickett is not ready. He looked ready, but, it was against backups in the preseason. But looked good nonetheless. And we know Trubisky isn't good. It's possible that Kenny Pickett can be good. I would feel much more comfortable with a guy who I don't know how good or bad he is starting than with a guy who I know is bad starting. But not my organization. So, alright, let's shift to this. So Lamar denied I don't know if it's an allegation. Denied the rumor. That's the right word. He denied the rumor that the Ravens offered him $250 million. And $250 million guaranteed in contract negotiations. I don't know if they did. Like I said, I'm not an insider, but even if they did offer him that money, I don't think he really... I wouldn't offer him fully guaranteed money, honestly. I don't think the Browns should be setting the standard for what you pay players. But that's what the players are thinking. They're like, okay, Watson got a fully guaranteed contract when he was on trial. So what can I get from these teams? Newsflash, your GM is most likely smarter than the Browns GM. So, I like that Lamar isn't going crazy and trying to get, and holding out to try to get more money. So, that's good for the Ravens, and I think it's good for Lamar, too. So, Mayfield released some t-shirts, one saying off the leash before the Browns game. And, I believe that, Mayfield could... I think the Browns could win that game. If Brissett turns on some sort of crazy, 4-touchdown game. But I think the Panthers have a better chance, obviously. I think the Panthers are going to win. You know, they're just better. They're just a better team. You know, without Watson on the Browns, I just have no. I have no faith in them. You know, and yeah, I don't have. I don't see any situation in which the Browns win this game. You know, and I think it would be good for Baker. You know, and terrible for the Browns. Like, I've already been over this. Like, the Browns, when you look at the situation, it's like the Browns gave up Mayfield to trade for a guy on trial. He then gets suspended for 11 games, leaving the Browns with a backup quarterback, Brissett. And now, here they are. It would just be hilarious to me if that happened. Alright. So the NFL season starts on Thursday, which is in 2 days. That is fantastic. It starts with the Bills and Rams. And that is a great game, and it is a big fantasy day for me because I'm in 3 fantasy leagues, and I have Stafford, Kupp, and Dawson Knox. And who else do I have in that game? Cam Akers in another league, and do I have anyone else in the third league? I don't even know. I do not. So I have a bunch of players in that game. I think that's 4 players in that game. But anyway, sorry about that. So the only thing I'm apprehensive about with the Bills is close games. They're favored in LA against the Rams by 2.5 points. And I think that I think it's going to be a close game. Problem is, in one-score games, the Bills were 0-6. The Rams were 7-1. And in the last 3 playoff games, going up to the Super Bowl, they won by 3. 27-24 against the Bucs. What was it, 2017 against the Niners? I don't know, but it was 23-20 against the Bengals. It was 3-point games. It was close, and they won 7 of the 8 that they were in last year. The Bills were 0-6. And that includes a loss to the Jaguars. Alright? I think the reason the Rams won the Super Bowl was because they were so good and so experienced with close games. Because, the Bills also have experience in them, but they never win them. That's the problem. You gotta win them. You know, and the Bills will do that very well. But if they can figure that out, I think they have a victory in their future. I think they win the Super Bowl if they figure that out. But that's also another reason I think the Rams may win, the Super Bowl again this year. They may repeat because of how good they are in close games. Alright. So Jerry Jones said he's optimistic about the Cowboys season. He says, I have to believe 1 and 1 equals 3. I'm not sure what that means, but I know what I think about the Cowboys, and they're going to be weak to average on the O-line. Their O-line's banged up and old. Their receivers are banged up, except for CeeDee Lamb. They have Dak Prescott, but he can only do so much. Then they have Zeke Elliott, starting over Pollard, who is a better running back than Elliott. I think everyone knows that at this point. Everyone I know that watches football says Pollard is a better running back. It doesn't take a genius to know this. Right? But Jerry Jones doesn't want to admit that he's wrong, that he was wrong to pay Zeke, and he was. I think I could have told you this the year after they paid him. He underperformed every year since they have. They paid him too early. It was obvious. And the crazy thing is, they paid Elliott too early, and they paid Dak too late. They paid Dak so late that he had that leverage. They would not have had to pay that much if they hadn't waited so long to pay him. I think if they paid him 2 years earlier, it would have been less money. Dak would not have been searching for that money if they had paid him 2 years earlier. No, I just don't trust them. I don't think their defense is very good. I'm not sure if they're well coached. I don't believe in their running game unless Pollard's on the field all 3 downs. Especially with their O-line, I'm not sure how Pollard's going to deal with that. Or, I'm sorry, Elliott's going to deal with that because he's the 3-down back. And his yards per game is going to decrease yet again this year. I'm here for the CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott connection, but if that's not something legendary, I don't see how it can help him at all. So, alright. Tom Brady says he's out there to prove I can lead the Bucs to the Super Bowl. He has nothing else to prove. But I do believe they'll win the division with relative ease. The Saints are going to be okay. Nothing great. Panthers are going to be a little below average. I'm going to say 6-11, 7-10. Saints probably 8-9, 9-8. Yeah, Saints probably... Yeah, that makes sense. Saints probably 8-9. And then Panthers 7-10. Then the Falcons, who are rebuilding, so they're probably going to be 4-13 or something like that. I just don't think you could say, I was a 6th-round pick. You're not a 6th-round pick anymore. You're a 7-time Super Bowl champion with 5 Super Bowl MVPs, I believe. 2005 he didn't win it. In 2017, 2019 he didn't win it. Yeah. But he's got nothing left to prove it. You can't use a 6th-round pick thing anymore because everyone knows he is a lot more than a 6th-round pick. Alright, so Harbaugh said that Lamar is still locked in despite the contract talks going on right now. Every year he gets better. He improves on something. His accuracy improves. He came into the league a little skinny, but he's getting more bulked every year. And I do think they should pay him. But if he's okay with putting the contract negotiations off a little bit, it's okay. But they don't want to wind up in the Cowboys' position where they're paying him too late. Like I said, the Cowboys should have paid Dak earlier, and I think the Ravens should pay Lamar, but they have to sit him down and just say, listen, we're not going to let the Browns set the standard for us. We're not giving you fully guaranteed money, because that could lead us downhill long term. So that's what they just got to tell him, but they do have to pay him. They got to extend him. He's the guy. He's great. He wins. He improves every year. And the same way you don't want the Browns to set the standard for how much money you give them, you want the Cowboys to set the standard for how late you wait to give him the contract. So, Clemson beat Georgia Tech 41-10. Now, there's an obvious... And it's obvious where each team stands. Alabama and Georgia are at the top. Clemson and Ohio State are just behind. Then you got your really... you got your dangerous contenders, They're not as good as Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, or Ohio State. But, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, maybe even the USC, they're all contenders. Again, I don't think they're going to be better than either of those teams, but hey, we'll see. There's no guarantee here. Okay, so we have my updated top 10. 10 dropping down from 5 is the Niners. If Trey Lance can do it, they are top 5. Their roster is great. That is a Super Bowl roster. But Shanahan has been transparent. He said he's inconsistent. Some days he's great, some days he really isn't. And that puts doubt into my mind that he will really be a good quarterback. And if he isn't, it's going to drop them down a lot. It also doesn't help that Shanahan is as great a coach as he is. He's 8-28 in his career without Jimmy G. So, how much can I really believe in him? Very little. So, I got them at 10. Number 9 is yet again either the Vikings or Packers. There are people that are still high on the Packers, in spite of losing Davante Adams. I'm not entirely sure. I do think the Packers have the best defense they've had since 2011. In that Super Bowl run, I think their defense was pretty damn good that year. I think this is the best defense since then. I think it's even better than 2011. And I do think Aaron Rodgers will figure it out eventually. I think he'll figure out. Rodgers is a great quarterback. There's no disputing it. People will say, you can say whatever you want about the playoffs. I don't think it's fair to rip on someone for losing in the NFC Championship every year. You're complimenting him by ripping him. Because you're saying he's a top 4 team every year. He brings his team to the Final Four every single year, and that is not a bad thing at all. Alright, and I think Rodgers is talented enough that, yes, having Davante Adams raises them to a Super Bowl contention level, but not having him is going to force him to work on a flaw he has. And I think his flaw of really having to trust someone completely in the receiving corps is part of the reason that they lose these playoff games. Because he is so worried about getting it to the guys he trusts, especially in the playoff games, that he forces it to them when he shouldn't. Watch the Bucs NFC Championship last year and the Niners divisional round this year. It's clear that Rodgers is forcing it to Adams when he shouldn't be. There are other guys open. He just doesn't want to throw it to them because he doesn't trust them. This is going to force him because there is no receiver that he may trust Randall Cobb more than he trusts Sammy Watkins or Alan Lazard because he knows Randall Cobb better, but he can't. Cobb doesn't have the talent anymore. Like, he can't just throw it to him every time. And Cobb's also older, out of his prime. Same with Sammy Watkins. You may trust them more, but they're not going to be productive for you. all the time. They might have a few big games. I'm sure they still have something left, but I think it's going to force him to work on his weakness, and he will figure it out eventually. I just don't know if he'll figure it out quick enough for them to beat the Vikings out in the division. Because the Vikings are looking good. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, one of the best receivers in the league. It pains me to say it, but they are they're sitting pretty. And last year, only 3 of their games weren't decided. 14 of their 17 games were decided by one score. So they put up a fight, and I think with their new coach, they're in a good spot. So number 8 is the Bucs. Did they fall? I don't know if they fell. I don't know. Anyway. I don't know. I think they should have fell. But they've suffered a lot of injuries. And Brady doesn't look too good right now. But he is Tom Brady, and they are in a weak division. And they're in the weaker conference. The NFC is significantly weaker than the AFC. So I have hope for them. I have hope for the Bucs. But I can't put them any higher than number 8 after this offseason. Number 7 is the Cardinals. Early in the year, before Kyler Murray's injury, they looked like the best team in the league. And they're going to score a lot, especially early in the year. And once Hopkins comes back, they're going to be even more deadly on the offensive side. I think they're a good team. Last year, they did get kind of manhandled by the Rams in the playoffs, but I think they'll take a step up this year. I got them at 7. Number 6 is the Chiefs, and, my big problem with them is the defense. And I think even worse is the fact that they don't have a Tyreek Hill. They have Travis Kelce, who's going to draw a lot of doubles. I think Travis Kelce is a great tight end, but I think a big part of his overwhelming success the past 2 years has been because Tyreek Hill draws doubles, and that leaves him open. Now Kelce is going to get doubled, and who's going to bail him out? No one. And who's the running back? Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Okay, he's all right. Nothing special. And their defense gave up 6 yards of play last year. Their defense is subpar. And their offense, as great as Mahomes might be, they ain't looking too good. And I don't think Mahomes has the problem Rodgers has. I don't think it's that he just can't trust his other receivers. I don't think he has that trust problem. And maybe him spreading the ball around will make him a better quarterback. And for the record, I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to be bad. I'm not saying they're going to be in the cellar with the Texans and the Jags or the Bears. I'm saying they're going to be the 6th best team in football. That's not a bad thing at all. I'm just saying I don't see why they would be who they have in the past few years. Number 5, changing up, I got the Chargers. Listen, I originally had the Raiders at 2nd with Adams. And, the Raiders have a lot of weapons. My problem is their defense. And it's Josh McDaniels' first year. Brandon Staley is entering his 2nd year in the system. Justin Herbert has gotten better every year. He's got weapons, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Their O-line looks good. Their defense got better. I am really high on the Chargers. Now this year is going to be the first time Herbert enters the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be magnificent, but I do think he can put up a good fight, maybe in the first round against whoever they draw. I think they're a playoff team, the Chargers. I really do. Because let's be real, whoever comes to the second in the AFC West is going to be a playoff team. That division is too good not to. They're definitely going to have at least 2 playoff teams. Alright. Number 4, dropping from number 3, is the Bengals. Now, I probably should put them at number 3. They have 3 more starters. 2 minutes ago, with 2 minutes left in the Super Bowl, they were winning. And Stafford led them down to win, last minute, but they were up. They were pretty damn close to being Super Bowl champions. Alright, and 10 of the 11 starters on their defense are back, but just every day I get higher and higher on the Broncos. I think they're as high as I'm going to put them now. They're at number 3. I can't put them ahead of the Bills or Rams because, they're just not on that level. I don't think they are. But like I said, Wilson, I think him and Hackett are going to get along very well. I think, like I said, yes, the receiving core doesn't have a lot of standout names. But think about when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos. Demaryius Thomas was not a standout name. Peyton Manning built him into a standout name. With Manning in that system, that's when Demaryius Thomas became a great receiver. He wasn't anyone crazy either. Him and Eric Decker, they were good, but they weren't going to be a part of a Super Bowl roster until Peyton Manning showed up. I can see that with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. They weren't standouts with Drew Lock, but they got Russell Wilson now. That's a big jump, and I think they're gonna. And they also got Javonte Williams. They look good, man. I got them at 3. 2 is the Bills. The only reason they're 2 is because of their struggles in close games. They would be number 1, and I think they will be at some point in the season. I will change them to number 1, but as of now, I can't do that. Number 1 is the Rams. I've already explained why I'm high on them. Got all their guys back. Their defense is great. Cam Akers is back. Their offense is great. They got a great coach. They got everything you need. So as a recap, 10 Niners, 9 Vikings or Packers, 8 Bucks, 7 Cardinals, 6 Chiefs, 5 Chargers, 4 Bengals, 3 Broncos, 2 Bills, 1 Rams. So what I put last... Okay, so the Bucks... So the Vikings and Packers jumped from 10 to 9. The Bucks actually jumped from 9 to 8. The Chargers jumped from 8 to 5. The Cardinals stayed at 7. The Chiefs stayed at 6. The Niners fell from 5 to 10. And the Broncos moved from 4 to 3. And the Bengals dropped from 3 to 4. So relatively the same. Alright. So Trubisky is named starter. I really think they should adjust. Pittsburgh, I think they just got to adjust to a new kind of system. I think they have to change their ways. But, I'm not at practice. I'm sure the players know what they're doing. They know what they're asking for. It could work for 3 games with Trubisky. It just feels like a temporary solution, not in the long term. It just feels like they're trying to fill in for this year. You know, it's just, I don't know. I can't be behind the Steelers. To be fair, I wouldn't even be high on them if I wouldn't even be high on the Steelers. If Kenny Pickett was starting, I would just be higher on them than I am with Trubisky starting. All right. So Trey Lance was apparently annoyed at the return of Jimmy G. Now Lance has a lot of pressure on him because there is no escape for him. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is the most talented, but he has an escape. He has no one on his roster. There's no reason to see him doing. There's no reason he should be succeeding. Maybe he should put up good numbers because he's a good quarterback, but there's no reason he should be, winning 10 games. Zach Wilson is also talented. The only great thing he really has is a great GM. His coach is unproven. His roster isn't insane. It looks like they're a younger roster too, but that's an escape for him. Like, if Wilson isn't winning more than 8 games, which he really shouldn't be, if he does, I think you're the best quarterback ever with that roster. And it's not that the roster is bad, it's just that it's young. It has to take time to develop into a great roster. But that's Wilson's escape, unproven head coach, and a roster that's developing. Justin Fields is absolutely nothing. He has one young receiver that looks promising. So, these guys all have something to escape with. And not that that's a good thing, but, it's less pressure on them. Okay? And, Trey Lance has the best roster out of all of them. He's got no reason. He has a great head coach. He has a good GM. He has a great offense, great defense that are already proven. They're not young, and they've already developed. I mean, they might be young, but they've developed into a star player already. He's got no excuses. So, his only excuse is I haven't played in a while, but, no one's going to jump for that. So, this is what makes me feel bad for him, really. I can't, it's hard. I would not want to be in his position. That's not good. I almost feel like it's an unfair amount of pressure on him right now. But, alright. So I've always defended Russell Wilson. An NFL executive said that he was propelled by good defenses in his career. So you're going to ask, what was Russell's career without those good defenses? Because he made the 2 Super Bowls he was in with that Legion of Boom. After that, he didn't make any. But I think you should ask, what is Pete Carroll's career without Russell Wilson? Unsuccessful. That's the only word to describe it. Unsuccessful. He did nothing without Russell Wilson. Absolutely nothing. What was he? He got fired twice, didn't he? Without Russell Wilson? He was unsuccessful without Wilson. And he got a lot of the credit when they were winning. Pete Carroll's a genius. Is he? He was fired by 2 different NFL teams. And Wilson, we're figuring out. Carroll is a good coach. I think Pete Carroll is a good coach, but it's the same way Bill Belichick is a good coach. I think they're still good coaches, but it's clear, I think this year it's going to be proven that Pete Carroll, without Wilson, isn't great. Same way it was proven, Bill Belichick is still a good coach. He isn't. He may even still be a great coach without Brady, but he's not legendary like he was. Like, he was considered the greatest coach ever. I no longer believe that. You know, like... Although, it's hard because the great coaches... When you think of the greatest coaches ever, they all had a great quarterback. Lombardi had Bart Starr. Chuck Noll, honestly, he probably had the worst quarterback out of the great coaches. He had Terry Bradshaw, who was good, but when you look at his stats and everything, it's like, okay. He had a good arm. He had a few good years, but other than, didn't do anything crazy. Tom Landry had Starbuck. Bill Walsh had Joe Montana. All these fantastic coaches had a great quarterback with them. So you can't... you can say Belichick got carried by Brady, but who's to say Lombardi, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, Bill Walsh, who's to say they didn't have help from their great quarterbacks? And who's to say if their quarterbacks left them, who's to say they wouldn't have struggled, So, I would still have Belichick as the best coach ever. But it's clear that the quarterback is the bigger part of the equation. I'd say it's about a 60-40 thing. 65-45, whatever you want to say. Alright, so the Vikings. I'm high on them, but I don't know. If Rodgers figures this out and can start succeeding with the Packers, they are not going to win the division. But if he figures it out late and starts winning with the Packers later, then I think the division is the Vikings. They got a great offense, great young assets, I think they got to tell Kevin O'Connell, this is not a rebuild at all. We have the roster. We just need you to take them to the next level. You're not starting from scratch. We're giving you a great roster. You just have to give them a little push. That's all. Alright, so Robert Saleh says that Zach Wilson has a chance to play on Sunday. It's still, whenever I watch that play, it doesn't look like he lands that hard. Sorry. It's... Problem is, with Joe Flacco, because the Jets don't have a great O-line. So you don't want to have, immobile quarterback with a bad O-line, If he's 90%, I would start him. If Flacco starts with the O-line, I think it's a loss. Alright, so Cliff Kingsbury says that it is surreal to face Patrick Mahomes for the first time in the NFL. They, I believe, knew each other from Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken. And the NFL, I think, is incredibly lucky that... Because a lot of times, the stars of the sport aren't the guys who want to be the face of the league. Mahomes is a guy who wants to be the face of the league. He's a good... Seems to be a good guy, well-liked, and obviously great at the game. So, alright. Let's head into the final segment of the day. Alright. So, we're going to do a start bench cut for this season. Who I would start. It's pretty much ranking the players for 1 to 3 based on how good I think they'll do this season. So, the first will be Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, and Baker Mayfield. I'm going to start Kirk Cousins. I think he has the best offense out of the three, and I think he has the most promise and is in the best spot, as I already said. I'm going to bench Matt Ryan. I think he's in a pretty good spot. Nothing crazy. He's also aging, so it's hard to put him ahead of Cousins. So I think benching him is fair. I'm going to cut Baker Mayfield because although I have hope for him week 1, I think overall in the season he's not going to do too great. Especially not better than Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins. So, alright. Carr, Stafford, and Kyler Murray. Sorry, I keep... Gonna start Stafford. I've already told you guys how high I am on the Rams. Bench Kyler Murray. It was damn it. It was a tough choice between him and Carr. It's just, I think Carr has a new coach. I think he's adjusting a bit. I think Kyler Murray will have overall a better season. Now, I'm going to get a little bit, we're going to up the stakes here. Lamar, Jalen Hurts, or Dak Prescott. I'm going to start Lamar. I think he's going to prove why he has to be paid this season. He has a bit of a, I don't know if he has a chip on his shoulder, but he does have something to prove, I think. Especially to a lot of people, because a lot of people are still riding him for only having one playoff win. I'm going to bench Jalen Hurts. I do like him for this year. Although, I don't think he's going to be better than Lamar Jackson right now. I think he could get there, but I think this year he's just going to take it to the next level, which is probably around where Lamar Jackson is. So, benching him. Cutting Prescott because he only has one receiver to throw to, and that guy's going to be doubled. So, I don't know how great Prescott's going to do this season. Now, for my favorite one. Rodgers, Brady, and Russ. Starting Russ, because he, I think, is a great position. I think he has a good chance to win MVP next season. I've already told you how much I love the Broncos, and I'm going to bench Aaron Rodgers. Again, tough choice between him and Brady, but Rodgers, for this year, I'm not saying Brady is worse than Rodgers and Russ all time, but I think this year, Rodgers and Russ are going to outplay him. Brady just doesn't look good right now. He could prove me wrong, but damn it. Sorry about that. That's my start bench code for this season. So still Miller Danielson. Not sure when I'll be able to see you guys, to talk to you guys next, but I'll see you whenever I can. So, my final outro before I take, I shouldn't say I'm taking it off. I have stuff to do, but before I am out for almost 2 months, this is Dylan Danielson, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, or iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Danielson. See you whenever I can.